Hey guys, and welcome to episode 19 of the Game Gengo JLPT N3 Grammar Series. In this video, we're going to be covering Naosu, Narubeku, Nazenara, and Ndatte. If you enjoy this video, make sure to like and subscribe and come join us on the Game Gengo Discord community on Patreon. So without further ado, let's get started.
ごめん、かけ直すよ。仕事が残ってた。
Naosu. This is an incredibly straightforward piece of grammar, as Naosu can just be used simply after the stem form of a verb, that means putting a verb in the must form and dropping the must, and then follow it with Naosu to mean to do that action again, to redo that action. So the verb stem with Naosu can be used to indicate a simple repetition of an action, but it can also suggest that something's being repeated in order to revise or improve it. Perhaps because the first time it was done, it wasn't done good enough, and now you redo it. In this first situation from Devil May Cry 5, we can just simply see kake naosu. Kakeru is to call someone on a phone, so kake naosu is to recall someone, to call someone back. So here, this is simply just expressing doing the action again. A very straightforward piece of grammar.
だから安心して人生をやり直すがよい。
Yarinaosu is to redo something. So here in Dragon Quest XI, we have jinsei o yarinaosu, to redo one's life.
もう一度考え直す必要がありそうだ。
Kangae naosu. Kangaeru is to think, so kangae naosu is to rethink. So perhaps the first thing that you thought wasn't correct, and now you need to do it again.
サマンサ・アメリカ・ストランド、新たな大統領だ。孤立した都市と都市をつなぎ直す。
In Death Stranding, we have tsunagi naosu. So tsunagu is to connect. Here, to reconnect is tsunagi naosu. To reconnect these cities that are isolated from one another.
壁土を取り除いて死体を隠してから塗り直すことは可能じゃ。
And finally, here in Famicom Tante, to repaint something, nuri naosu. So after removing a section of the wall, simply repaint over it to hide it. That's being expressed here with nuri naosu. So this is a really simple piece of grammar. Simply follow any verb in the stem form with naosu to mean to redo that action. Simply whether just to do something again, or perhaps you're not satisfied with how it was done the first time, so you redo it. Naosu.
俺は喧嘩も心ももっと強くなるぞ。牛乳もなるべく飲むぞ。
Narubeku. Narubeku means as much as possible. This is simply an adverb that you use to express that whatever action you're doing as much as possible. This is very similar to another piece of grammar, dekiru dake. However, the main difference between these two pieces of grammar is dekiru dake really has a feeling of doing something as much as possible within your own strengths and abilities. So pushing yourself to the absolute limits so that you can do as much as humanly possible. Whereas Narubeku is expressing that in accordance with the current situations and conditions that you'll do as much as possible. So it's not so much about the human action and endeavor, but more as just as much that is possible, that fits the situation and course of events. So in a way, you could almost look at it as a slightly weaker version of dekiru dake, because dekiru dake really feels like you're doing as much as you can possibly do within your personal limits, within your personal ability, whereas Narubeku is more looking at just the situation and not so much about your own ability, just as much as possible. So here in Fullmetal Alchemist, I'll try to drink as much milk as I can. Narubeku nomu. So he's not expressing here that he'll drink as much as he possibly physically can, but more just that fitting the situations, he'll do his best. Narubeku nomu. As best as what fits the situation.
仲間を助けたら、なるべく早くこの星を去ってほしい。
Narubeku hayaku, so here in Star Ocean 4, leaving the planet as soon as possible. So perhaps here, depending on the circumstances and the situation, leaving as quickly as possible, rather than the physical limits of your ability. That would be dekiru dake.
悪いね。なるべく長話しないようにするからさ。
Do my best to not talk so long. So here, fitting the situation, depending on, the surrounding events and how each other interact with each other, he'll try to make the story short.
なるべく早く戻るから 待っててね。
So I'll be back as fast as I can, depending on how the trial goes. Rather than based on my own ability, that would be dekiru dake, but here narubeku as fast as I can, based on how the trials go.
ご飯なるべく気を抑えながら急ぐんだ。はい。
You need to suppress your ki as much as you can. So based on the current situations, there's a lot of pressure and difficulty. Just as much as you can, suppress your ki.
今のうちに協力できそうな子を見かけたら、なるべく声をかけておくといいですよ。
And finally, you should speak to them as much as possible, to call out to them as much as you can. So Narubeku is a pretty straightforward, simple piece of language. It's an adverb that modifies the action that you're doing, the verb, and it just expresses that you'll do it as much as you can. This is very similar to dekiru dake. However, dekiru dake is more focused on your own ability, as much as your ability can do, pushing yourself to the absolute personal limits. But here, Narubeku is more just looking at the surrounding circumstances and situations, and as best that fits that circumstance and situation, you'll do your best. So it's a little bit weaker than dekiru dake, Narubeku, as much as possible.
お前ならできるはずだ。なぜならお前は俺の息子だ。
Nazenara. The reason is because. Nazenara is a really useful piece of language that expresses the reason to a previously stated result. So after you've talked about the current situation, for example, Geimu ga suki desu. Well, following that, you then have Nazenara, the reason being, the reason is, and then follow with whatever reason it is that you like games. Nazenara is actually a short form of Nazenaraba, or put in other ways, naze ka toiu to, which looked at literally means if I were to say why. That's the kind of literal breakdown of this nazenara. If I were to say why. If I were to say why I like games, it's because you can learn Japanese with them. Or like here in Naruto, the reason why, if I were to say why you can do it, it's because you're my son. So, pretty simple piece of grammar. You're expressing the reason why something is a certain way.
では敵とは何だ。時間には関与しない絶対的な敵とは。そんな敵は地球上には存在しない。なぜなら敵はいつも同じ人間だからだ。
The reason why there's no such enemies like that is because our enemies are always the same. They're people.
この先は君たちが訪れるべき場所ではない。なぜならこれは体験版だからだ。
The reason why you shouldn't go beyond this place is because this is the demo version of the game.
僕らは知らない。あんたは知らない。なぜならあんたが僕たちを守ってくれるから。なぜなら僕らが絶対あんたを守るから。
The reason why you and I won't die is because we will protect you and because you protect us.
彼は無実だったんです。なぜならその時、息子の仇を殺していたから。
The reason why he was innocent is because at that time he just avenged his son's death.
みんなで海へ行こう。なぜなら、俺たちこの夏休みは一度も海へ行ってない。
And the reason why we need to go to the beach is because we haven't been all summer vacation. So it's a pretty straightforward piece of grammar to use. Follow whatever situation that you want to explain why it is that certain way with nazenara, and then follow that with the reason, explaining why it is that way. The reason why you can do it is because you're my son. The reason why you won't die is because we will protect you. The reason why you can't go any further is because this is a demo version. And because Nazenara is explaining why it's a certain way, you will often see this paired with dakara or kara at the end of the sentence, because that's also explaining because. The reason why is because. So you'll often see these two pieces of language paired together when Nazenara is used.
聞いたぜ。お前元登場界のやつなんだってな。
Ndatte or ndeste. This piece of grammar is used to express something that you've heard from someone else, or conveying information that you've seen from somewhere else. You're conveying information that doesn't come from oneself, it comes from something else. This is very similar to the N4 piece of language, soda, to express information that you've heard from somewhere else. I heard that, or it is said that. However, here, ndatte is a little bit more casual spoken language. You can use it following verbs, e-adjectives, and nouns and na adjectives with the na following it. So like here in Yakuza 7, the piece of information that he is expressing that he heard from another party is, I heard you're a former Tojo Kai member. So here, yatsu is talking about a person, it's a noun, so we need to follow it with a na, yatsu nandatte. I heard that you're a guy. That is a former Tojo Kai. In this particular example sentence, we can actually see the word for I heard, kita. So this is a very clear sentence. He's talking about very clearly that he heard information from somewhere else. But you won't always see this kita for heard something in the sentence. You can just use it just normally, the ndatte, to express that you heard or got this information from somewhere else.
ねえチョコボ、聞いた？街の火が全部消えちゃったんだって。
Here in Final Fantasy Fables Chocobo's dungeon, hey Chocobo, did you hear? They said all the fires in the city are gone. So here, the ndatte is following a verb to express that they heard that action took place.
これを持つ者は自分の血と肉を引き換えに世界を手に入れる運命なんだって。
In Berserk, we can see Griffith saying that he heard from this lady that the person who has this bailet is destined to obtain the world. So here, following a noun with nandatte.
ああ、ここ市場だったみたい。ここで昔、巨人が神々と売り買いしてたんだって。
In God of War, it says that this is where the Titans used to buy and sell with the gods. So he's relaying information that he deciphered from this tablet, and according to the tablet, so it's information coming from somewhere else, it says this is where the Titans used to buy their stuff.
スコットランドに財宝はなかったんだって。
じゃあ何のために来たってんだ。
I heard there isn't any treasure in Scotland. Here again, following a verb in the past tense.
荒川のガキンチョの子守係になったんだってね。
And finally, in Yakuza 7 again, I heard you became a babysitter for Arakawa's brat. So we can see this ndatte is used at the end of a sentence to express that I heard whatever comes before it. It's almost like quoting the whole first part, and it's expressing that I heard whatever came before the ndatte. The reason why ndatte expresses information that you heard from somebody else is because the nda actually comes from noda, to say it is that. It's explaining something. And it's combined here with the te, which is actually the quoting particle to, but it's used in this contraction. So it's quoting how it is. Well, if you're quoting the way something is, who are you quoting? You're quoting what somebody else says, information that comes from somewhere else. And so this ndatte is doing exactly that. It's quoting what you heard, or what information you got from somewhere else. And there we have the next 4 pieces of N3 grammar. Naosu, to do an action again, whether just to repeat the action or to do it again to improve the result. Narubeku, to express doing something as much as possible, but not as much as humanly possible, that would be dekyuru-dake. Here just as possible as fits the situation. Nazenara, explaining the reason why, if I were to say why, and then following the explanation. And then finally, ndatte, to express information that you heard from somewhere else. I heard that, or they said. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you liked this video, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and come join us on the Game Gengo Discord community, where we have a wonderful group of people where we all just enjoy learning Japanese together and enjoy Japanese media and video games and all that kind of stuff. It's just a really fun, chill environment. So a huge thank you to all the supporters on Patreon, and as always, I'll see you again in the next video. See ya.